get this going. Okay, great. And so I know you're all on mute, but if things start to lag behind too badly or anything like that, just use the webinar control panel, and we'll make sure to slow down. So anyways, just thanks for everybody for joining our June water supply webinar. It's our last webinar of a busy runoff season. But we're going to give a brief update on the May weather and stream flow that we just observed. Talk a little bit about our snow situation that's rapidly dwindling. Talk about our water supply forecast going forward, and then a bit about the upcoming weather and climate. So what you'll see here is you'll see some contours of the 500 millibar geopotential heights that Greg usually shows. And what I thought I'd show here on the side here is when we get these kind of troughs and ridges that go through each plot, that's kind of when you see either a calming in the weather activity or more active weather activity. So for instance, oops, we lost our screen here. But for instance, on the far left side, we see calmer weather and near average temps, and you see sort of that smoother gradient, not a lot of changes along the latitudinal lines in the geopotential heights. And when we started May, we had calm weather and near average temps. Going into week 2, you see sort of that trough come through the upper Colorado River Basin. And we actually saw a lot colder weather and more storm activity, particularly in the Great Basin and upper Colorado River Basin regions. Week 3 was really interesting for us here because we had warming temps in the north and less storm activity, so things sort of calmed down. But towards the end of the month, we had well above average temperatures. I think in some areas we were 10 to 14 degrees above average. And so that drove increases to our streamflow rates really high. So we'll show some graphics about that going forward. But that's kind of a very active month of May. So you can see sort of that stormy conditions up there in the north and sunny conditions to end the month. So this is the accumulated precip from the Tower Snowtell Station up north in Colorado. And you can see sort of that second week in May where we had that active weather pattern go through. We had a lot of precip accumulate in a relatively short amount of time. And we accumulated precip throughout the Colorado River Basin and parts of the northern Great Basin region. Later on in the month, you could see at the Tower Station, we did have increasing temperatures that drove up streamflow rates going forward. So here's a site near that Tower Station. It's the Elk near Milner. And what you can see here is about the time of Memorial Day weekend, around the 24th, 25th, 26th, when we started to see those increase in temperatures, you can see how the streamflow really responded to the above average temperatures. And this was pretty indicative of a lot of regions in the northern upper Colorado River Basin and Green River Basin regions. Lots of stations were above bank full. A few got near or just above flood stage. So it was a very active time here at the RFC. And so you can see sort of that region that I've highlighted that kind of corresponded to those above average temperatures that we saw at the end of May. Precipitation for the month of May, you can see sort of that swath of precip activity that went through sort of southern Utah and a lot of Colorado and the very southern portion of the Green River Basin. That's where we had that active weather pattern and where we saw some of that accumulation that was shown in the Tower Precipitation Snowtell gauge. But the rest of the basin was relatively dry. We didn't get a whole lot in the northern Great Basin region and the lower Colorado River Basin. With the exception of the Virgin this month, we didn't see a lot of precip there either. Seasonally, we're still basically unchanged, still really good precip, near average conditions in the Green River Basin and the Colorado headwaters regions and the upper portions of the Gunnison, and relatively drier in the Great Basin and as you move south in the Colorado River Basin. Our temperatures, we were relatively cooler for the month of May as a whole. Like I said, we had that last week there where temperatures rose and were above average. But our maxes for this month were relatively cool for most of the region, and our mins were pretty close to average, except in the northern Great Basin region and the Green River Basin, where things were a little warmer, but pretty close to average as far as min temperatures go. Before I get to the snow, I'll unmute everybody and just see if there's any questions going forward.
Conference is now in talk mode.
Any questions about any of the weather stuff I've just covered? Awesome. So I'll put you guys back on mute and we'll keep on going.
The conference is now in silent mode.
So just to show sort of our current snow situation, we're basically running out of snow throughout most of the CVRC region. What we're showing here are the percentiles so that you can kind of see where snow is still prevalent within the basin. And you can kind of see up in the upper Colorado headwaters region, we still have a lot of snow tell stations reporting snow a little bit down here in the Gunnison, and then up in the northern Green River Basin and those kinds of places. So anyways, just a indication of the snow. It's drying out pretty much everywhere. Our model is showing drying conditions throughout. So this is, oops, go back up one slide. So this is showing conditions throughout the basin. You can kind of see we're below average throughout a lot of the Utah region, but you can still see up in the really northern portion of the Green River Basin, we're still seeing above average snow conditions. And in the headwaters of the Colorado, things are starting to dry out towards the outlet points of the watershed, but still up in those headwater areas, we've still got a decent showing of snow there. So we're monitoring the situation, but we do think things are drying out for the most part. And going forward here. So these are just our snow basin, our basin snow groups here. And you can kind of see we're on the downward swing pretty much everywhere. A lot of places in the upper Colorado River Basin are trending near average, but we're starting to see places run out of snow. The upper Colorado River Basin as a whole is still near average. In the Gunnison, we're still trending near average. Looks like around the Dolores and the San Juan, we're basically out of snow there. Looking at the Duchesne and in the Great Basin group, we're also very close to dry conditions, especially in the Great Basin region, where we were mostly below average in the southern portion of the Great Basin, and we're running out of snow there. Up north in the Bear River headwaters group, basically near average conditions, but again, we're towards the end of the snow season here. So this is a cool map that I wanted to show everybody, just showing our April through May observations, and hopefully you're all seeing it right now. In the upper Colorado River Basin, especially along the Green and the Colorado headwaters basin, we're seeing lots of observations that are well above average. The Colorado River at Cameo is has just for April through May has had about 1.3 million acre feet, looking just under 40% of average. Blue Mesa at 370,000 acre feet so far at just about 126% of average. Up at Flaming Gorge, 460,000 acre feet, 120% of average. So pretty good conditions so far this year. Lake Powell's holding steady at about 3.05 million acre feet, 90% of average. But I think Brenda can talk to it a little bit later if she'd like, but I think we've still got more runoff coming down the pike. So we'll show the ESP plots for Powell later on. In the Great Basin, in the north, we're doing okay. We're near average in the Weber River Basin and parts of the Bear, but as you get down south into the Provo and you're starting to see, drier and drier conditions. The Virgin is at a paltry 25% of average. Looking at our seasonal forecast, things are trending basically about that. At the Weber, we're looking near 80% of average. Along the Provo, about near average at about 95%. But really, we've still got a ways to go here with the Upper Colorado River Basin. The Flaming Gorge is looking to end the year at just above 1.3 million acre feet at 135% of average. Colorado at Cameo just under 3.2 million acre feet at 133% of average. And probably the one that concerns most people on the phone call, Lake Powell is looking to be just above average at just under 7.6 million acre feet. So at 105% of average. And the Poor Virgin is only looking to finish the year off at 32% of average. So just to talk a little bit about our forecasting going from here on out. On this plot, we'll show most of the details that go into these plots. These plots are available on our website, and we update them every day, provided everything's working right. And what you can see here is on these plots, we have the June official forecast plotted at the top in the title, and I've kind of put them in a bigger font size just for everybody to see. So this is for Powell, and you can see we've got 7.55 million acre feet at 105% of average. You can see our official forecast in the solid red lines as they've evolved, and you can see the 10th percentile and the 90th percentile, as well as the official forecast with the 50th percentile. That's that solid dot there in the middle of the lines. But you can kind of see what our raw ESP is showing us. This serves as a good indicator of where our forecast is trending. You can see the impacts of recent storm events through these plots. And also, now that we're in the April through July period, we're showing the observations to date as we get them in, at least where we're getting real-time observations. So you can see how those observations are stacking in. So how this works is we take our observations and then we forecast for the remaining portion of the water supply season, and then add those observations back in. So for today, we'll be forecasting from June 6th through, I forget which day it is. We're forecasting June 6th through the end of July and adding back in the observations that we get through today. So we are taking into account the observations as they go forward, and you can see them in the orange bars going forward. So here's Powell. And as we kind of go through the basin here, here's the forecast at Fontenelle up in the Green River Basin. You can see holding steady from last month's forecast, maybe a little bit higher, but pretty close to the same. About 1.1 million acre feet at 156% of average. Going to the Yampa at Deer Lodge, again, looks like there wasn't a ton of change from last month, about 1.5 million acre feet and 125% of average. The Colorado near Cameo looks like a slight increase from last month. And you can see sort of how, as our forecasts have evolved, how our uncertainty in those 1090s has tended to decrease a little bit. And that's just because we have, more information. We're forecasting less of the runoff period and relying more on those initial conditions there. So, yep, Cameo's gone up a little bit, about 3.14 million acre feet, 133% of average. At Taylor Park, up in the headwaters of the Gunnison River Basin, there we go. Slight decrease. We're down to about 118,000 acre feet, just near 120% of average. Going down the Gunnison to Blue Mesa, and I'm trying to make sure we're on time here. 860,000 acre feet, about 127% of average. The San Juan at Navajo looks like we've held pretty steady there too, 455,000 acre feet, just about 60% of average. We were at Oakley. No change there in the forecast from last month. 92,000 acre feet, just under 80% of average. And what I thought might be interesting to show is some of the rankings that we have over the historical period at some interesting points in the basin. In the Colorado headwaters region, above Kremlin, a lot of those segments are in the top 5 of the uh, um, wettest years on record, wettest April through July observations on record, and or sorry, April through July forecast on record. They're in the top 5. Colorado River at Kremlin is currently forecasted to be the 3rd wettest on record if everything plays out. Over in the Great Basin, Lambs Creek is currently forecasted to be only the 42nd wettest or the 3rd driest. And over at West Canyon Creek, we're only looking to see about 160 acre feet, and that would be the driest on record if things hold to form. One kind of surprising note, in the Green River Basin, we've had a really great year up there snow-wise, but a lot of those years probably in the 10 to 15 wettest, currently projected to be around the 10 to 15 range. So I was surprised about that. I thought they'd be higher, but Ashley was telling me that there's been some really, really big years up there. So yeah, we're about in the 10 to 15 ranking range up there. So let's see, I'll take you guys off mute now that we've done the forecast.
Conference is now in talk mode.
So any questions on the forecast that we've made so far? Doesn't sound like it. So I'll put you guys back on mute and we'll talk about the upcoming weather and climate going forward.
The conference is now in silent mode.
So we were actually entering a pretty calm period here, precip-wise, in our region. Maybe a little bit along the Colorado headwater regions, and maybe a little bit into New Mexico, but relatively dry. At least looking out in the next week, a lot of that storm system's moved to the central United States. And we're looking to be a little bit warmer than usual, around 3 to 6 degrees hotter as far as our max temps go. I think it holds form for the min temps for the most part too. So we're entering kind of a little bit above normal temperatures, and then relatively calm on the precip side of things. Just kind of looking out long term, monthly wise here. And we've got from the Climate Prediction Center, equal chances for above or below precip values through the month of June. So, hopefully we'll be in the above category. Looking out June through August, looks like there's a slight chance, or looks like there's a chance for above average precip in the upper Colorado region and into northern Arizona and northern New Mexico. A lot of that's due to sort of the projection of heading into El Nino-like conditions and the Madden-Julian oscillation, which might bring some precip to our region, hopefully going here forward. So just looking way ahead a little bit, El Nino conditions are expected to develop over the summer. Just wanted to stress that the correlation isn't particularly strong over the upper Colorado River Basin, and that those correlations are more with precip and temperatures, which aren't always directly reflected in stream flow. So, I wouldn't hang your hat on El Nino. It's nice to have, but probably wouldn't bet the farm on getting high stream flows, just based on our El Nino conditions. Climate in our region is influenced by a lot of other teleconnections, like the Madden-Julian oscillation, like the Atlantic monthly oscillation, and some of those other ones. But I did want to point you to this really cool new part on climate.gov. They've got an ENSO blog that's written by a lot of ENSO experts, including a few from NOAA. But the articles, I think, have been really great. They're very accessible. They're very non-technical. But they do a really good job of explaining what El Nino is and what it isn't. and they're just interesting to read. I've enjoyed reading them so far this year. I think there's only like 3 or 4 articles so far, but definitely check that out. It's a neat little blog. So just kind of hitting the El Nino forecast a little bit more. We're looking at a 65 to 75% chance of developing El Nino conditions in the summer. And it looks like, based on what the models are showing, that it's probably going to be in that moderate range, so about a 1 standard deviation away, just if you take the average of all the dynamical and statistical models that are out there. Looks like we're going to be in that moderate range, and yeah, it looks like there's a good chance, about 65 to 70, 75% chance of getting to those El Nino conditions. Just wanted to show what those mean exactly. So in an El Nino event, this is sort of what it means for the upcoming winter. And you can sort of see, that the upper Colorado River Basin is sort of in this area, of no correlation, where there's not really an influence of El Nino in that area. So we've got warmer, drier conditions to the Pacific Northwest, so probably a good time if you're in the Seattle area. And then, we'll probably see some wetter, cooler conditions in southern Arizona and southern New Mexico. But yeah, as far as for where the snow is actually falling and where we get our water supply from, there's not a really strong correlation there. So just wanted to throw that out there. Here's a plot I made of our annual water year stream flows and the oceanic Nino index that NOAA uses. And you can see they're all over the place. I put a best fit line through there, but there's not much of a correlation there. I think it's like a 6% correlation. So it's not significant at a 95% confidence interval or anything like that. So and you can see we've had really great years in strong La Nina conditions, and we've had really bad years in strong El Nino conditions. So yeah, we'll see where this year falls, and hopefully we'll be on the high end of stream flow rates. And just wanted to close here with a few words about peak flows. Many sites are peaking this time of year. We expect most of them to peak within the next week or so. Do not look at our peak flow webpage. That's not the place you want to check. Our daily forecasts are updated much more frequently. We're taking a look at those multiple times throughout the day. They're more responsive to changes in regulation, especially in areas where specific targets are trying to be hit, or flows and dam regulations are changing frequently. We incorporate those changes much more quickly onto our website and our daily forecast. So our peak forecast page, we're not going to update it again this year. So definitely check our daily forecast page. Those get updated much more frequently. And so just to show a picture of that, this is where you should be looking for the flows. This is where you can click and see what the forecast is looking like. We've got the nice color-coded dots there, so you can take a quick glance and see which stations are near or above bank full or flood stage, and which stations are closer to normal flow conditions. So this is where you should be taking a look at. And with that, I'd just like to say, please let us know if you have any questions or comments or concerns. We're definitely available to help. Michelle Stokes is our hydrologist in charge. Brenda's in charge of the Upper Colorado region. Ashley Nielsen is working with the Green and the Yampa and White River basins. Greg Smith is looking at the San Juan, Gunnison, and Dolores regions. I'm looking at the Great Basin regions. And then Tracy Cox is taking a look at the Lower Colorado and the Virgin and the Sevier. So please feel free to contact any or all of us. We're definitely here to help. So with that, I'll put everybody off of mute.
Is now in talk mode.
And are there any questions? I'm going to check on the web here to see if anybody's asked anything. Doesn't look like it yet.
I have a question.
Sure.
When will this be put on your website, this presentation?
The presentation is already on the website. It's if you go click on the presentations link, and there will be a link for 2014 presentations, and it'll be the one at the bottom. So I just uploaded that, maybe an hour ago.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And we're also going to put this on our YouTube channel, so check that out. And for those who don't know, we also have a Facebook page. We're going to get on Twitter, all kinds of stuff. So friend us, like us. I don't know what the exact parlance is for Twitter, but Twitter us. So tweet us, yeah. So yeah, we're working on the Twitter thing, but Brent actually does a really good job of updating our Facebook page with information and stuff like that. So find us there too. Great. Well, again, if there's any questions that you think of after the webinar, just give us an email or a call. We're definitely available. And thanks. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, so I can hang up there. Right. Let's see.